Hello and welcome to another edition of the Sporting Kansas City Show on your home for SKC Soccer Sports Radio 810 WHB. This is Nate Bukaty along with Aly Trost and Conall McCourt, and we are presented by Michelob Ultra. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. Well, guys, we enjoyed that game this past weekend, didn't we? Aly,
yeah.
How you doing?
I'm doing very well. Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to pick out any bad thing about Sporting Kansas City in that match. So a huge momentum boost, I think, for this team as they go on the road for a difficult match against San Jose. So hoping to see them carry that same momentum, especially around the net.
Conall, how you doing, man?
All good, mate. Can't complain. I mean, it was I wouldn't say routine victory, but as Tim said, the best that we've seen Sporting play this year, for sure. Everything looked so complete. They were so well connected. Everybody looked cohesive as a unit. And as Aly said, hopefully continue the same going into San Jose. It'll be a different animal going into San Jose, but I mean, hopefully they can just kind of take the confidence from that last week into this one.
Okay, so the Tim that Conall was referring to is Tim Melia. He's going to join us on the show next. We'll pull the curtain back a little bit and let you know that we taped that earlier today. No worries. It's we're here in the lush multimedia 810 WHB studios. We got the Sporting KC flag in the background. We got the nice bubbly Michelob Ultra on the video board. Tim's going to join us via Zoom, so we'll see his beautiful face as well. That's coming up on the show. I'll go ahead and lay out the menu for you. Yes, we will break down that 3-0 victory over the Vancouver Whitecaps this past weekend, a thoroughly dominant performance. We will also look ahead to a very difficult matchup on the road at San Jose coming up late Saturday night. And we're going to hear from Greg Berhalter, the head coach of the U.S. men's national team, because I got my tickets. I don't know about you guys. I went ahead and bought all 3 tickets for my entire family. Took a little chunk out of my wallet, but I don't care. I'm so excited about the United States men's national team being here for all 3 games of group play in the Gold Cup. 5 matches we're going to get to watch here in the span of just over a week. So we're going to hear from Greg Berhalter about that as well coming up on the show. Yeah. The great thing about CONCACAF soccer is you learn all the little island nations after a while. You know,
I know.
That's the Caribbean.
Yeah,
it's a Caribbean island.
Yeah, you get to figure out which ones were French territories, which ones were Netherlands.
I'm also squinting too because I can't zoom in on my email, so I'm like, I think that's an I and a Q. I don't know. Maybe my eyes are getting bad.
I mean, that USA Canada one is a really tasty one. You can buy single game tickets coming up as well. You can go to SeatGeek.com. We want to pack that place because this is, to me, a dress rehearsal. This is a chance to show again why Kansas City deserves to host the World Cup coming up in 5 years' time. And it's just a chance to watch your national team play that's filled with young, exciting players. So we'll hear from Greg Berhalter on that in just a second.
Of course, by that stage, it's full capacity, right?
Yep, full capacity.
As of the 29th of May, this month, full capacity. So they could really get that place rocking, especially against Canada. That's a big one. Like, you don't want to be getting upset by the Canadians on your home turf. So
I'd sure like to think that the American Outlaws all over the country are looking forward to come. Because the thing is, too, usually the U.S. plays in one place, in all 3 different games of the group stage. If you're an American soccer fan, and if you're listening to this podcast from other parts, come visit Kansas City in the most beautiful time of the year. I'm just kidding. July is not the most beautiful time of the year in Kansas City, but it will be a beautiful week for soccer, and you get to camp out because you know you're going to get to watch your team play all 3 times. You don't have to travel anywhere. Check out the World War I Museum, check out the Negro Leagues Museum, get some barbecue, do some touristy stuff, and watch the U.S. play.
Come sweat in the Midwest. That's our new tagline.
Let's go. Let's go. You can come hang out at the swimming pool with us somewhere. I don't know. So, guys, let's get into it. Sporting Kansas City 3, Vancouver Whitecaps 0. Conall, I'll start with you. You said a little bit routine, not really anything to complain about in the game. Give me something that stood out to you the most and maybe impressed you the most out of this game for Sporting KC.
Honestly, it was probably Aly at centre half. We spoke about it last week, and it was just kind of a suggestion I think you may have thrown out. We could see Aly play there.
Yeah, so and I by the way, no inside information on that, just other than that we'd seen him play there before.
And it was a matter of, we all know how comfortable he is on the ball, but that's a completely different, especially up against 2 strikers. I was a wee bit, wow, I couldn't really believe that it was originally a defensive midfielder playing centre half, but didn't look one bit out of place. Like, that everything good about what he does, holds the ball, protects it, lends it to the other defenders. And Sporting they look rampant from the start. Obviously, Busio playing a worldly again, as we're used to seeing him playing all different places. But now it comes to, do you keep Aly there? Seeing as they're playing so well, like, you don't fix what isn't broken. And especially with how good Busio was in the holding position, do you kind of mix that up a bit, or do you keep it the same going into San Jose? It's a good problem to have, for sure, for Peter Vermees to have all these different things that he can pull from. But, I mean, going in with how they played last week, they'll be brimming full of confidence going into San Jose this week.
So I had a chance to talk to Aly today at training, and it's always fascinating to pick his brain about the beautiful game. And I asked him, because one of the things that stood out to me about him playing center back is he seemed to be in the right place all the time. Mm-hmm. And for me, as a person who never was asked to play center back and never would be at any level of my life, I always thought that's one of the most difficult things about the job is just knowing where to be at all times. Yep. And I asked him about that, and he said it is difficult because you have to read where your teammates are. You have to read where all of the opponents on the opposite side are, where the ball is. And he says, and then all of a sudden the opponent in front of you goes left instead of right, and it changes the calculus on all of that, and you're constantly having to react to it. So I said, well, as a guy that's played six your whole life, how do you know where to be? And he said, listen. I listen to my teammates. I listened during the game. I paid attention. He said it was easier for him going into the game knowing where he was going to play as opposed to, in the game against Austin, he dropped back there in the middle of the game.
Right.
Now, they were up a man, so he didn't have to defend as much at that time. But I think it shows the soccer IQ of Aly right there, and it will be interesting to see how they manage it going forward. A lot of that's probably going to depend on who's available and who isn't.
And the opponent as well. Because, the way that they played, as we have talked about, I think just off camera and off air here, is that Aly is so good on the ball. Fontes is so good on the ball. Busio is so good on the ball. When you're a team that can play and distribute so well, all the stats will show you that Sporting Kansas City, just by the numbers, completely it was a total mismatch. They took away any ability for Vancouver to play any sort of their own style or impose their will on the match, and just their quality on the ball. And it's interesting that you say that he told you that, he likes to just listen, because we talked with Fontes at training today, and, a couple of Spaniards, they speak to each other in Catalan out on the pitch. So they kind of have that that chemistry, not just in quality of play. And, Fontes was just hyping up Aly, saying he's such a quality footballer, and he just, knows the game so well. When your IQ is that high in the sport, you're just able to, positionally, or the way that you read certain situations, it's just a notch above. And I think Aly is one of those players. But the fact that they're able to speak to each other like that, there's a competitive advantage there if you're playing against a team that doesn't have a lot of maybe Spanish or Catalan speaking individuals on there. So Fontes was just laughing about that, just about that relationship between the two of them.
Certainly, you had to wonder if there's some sort of mind meld going on between. We saw the chemistry that Matt Beasley would have with guys at certain times in his career, and chemistry means a lot on that back line. All right, Aly, what was something that stood out to you from the game?
You
have to pick one. That's a tough part. Like Peter Vermees after the game, by the way, listed off all 11 starters when Carter Augustine asked him about what impressed him in the game. You could pick every single guy, so it's an open book for you. I'm just asking you to pick one thing, and I know it's hard to pick just one.
Well, let's go with the man of the match, and that is Alan Pulido. He scores a brace. We've talked about, with this team, any issues that you could point out could kind of come back to, at least offensively, not getting Alan Pulido the ball enough or not getting him in scoring positions enough. But it's hard to bring up Alan Pulido and not bring up Daniel Shalhoub as well. I thought he was fantastic in that game, drawing the foul that led to the penalty kick, and just so much to go around. But Alan Pulido would have to be, the player that impressed me in that game, because that's what Sporting Kansas City brought him in for, and to see him playing at the level that he is, even early in the season on limited minutes. And I found a stat, if I can pull it up here, but most goals and primary assists per 90 minutes, Alan Pulido leads the league in that category.
So a couple of things to add on that with Pulido. Number one, you can take for granted that he converted the penalty, but you shouldn't. I heard a stat. I was listening to a podcast earlier this week. Chicharito, as amazing as he's been this year, he missed a penalty. I think he's like 50% from the penalty spot. This is one of the best goals. This is the best goal scorer in Mexican history, and we've seen it. There have been years where Sporting KC have had Aly take the penalties because they didn't have a guy that they could really trust to step up there. And how nice is it to know you got a guy like Alan Pulido that just seems to be rock solid, and he puts it in the bottom corner, just as cool as you like.
Not one person in that stadium thought he was missing that penalty.
Right.
Not one.
Right.
Yeah, there is
not the goalkeeper on the other side,
but
by the
even
way.
like it used to be kind of more. I mean, I know stats are coming more into the game, and Tim's a great example of it. It's not really a lotto anymore. It kind of used to be a coin flip if it went to penalties or whatever. Now it's such a fine art. This is something that these guys study day and daily. Who will be hitting the penalties for them? Where have they hit their last few penalties? Where do they usually miss? Where there's so much analytics go into it now. It's not really, as you're saying, you can't really take it for granted anymore. And when he stood up to take the penalty, I think everyone was okay, just bring the ball back to the centre.
Yeah.
Because it was just a matter of time. Everybody knew it was going in, and that's just the confidence that he brings to the team.
Yeah,
like.
and Sporting didn't always have that either. I mean, I remember a couple seasons ago when Elie was the go-to. I mean, it kind of just was who's hot and who's been consistent from the PK spot. But Alan Pulido, if he's on the field, he's that guy.
Yeah, there's no controversy.
doubt.
Like, nobody's trying to take the ball away from him. None of that stuff happens. This is your ball. You go put this penalty away, and we move on. I still believe that whoever gets the foul should be the one forced to take the penalty. I think that's a rule that soccer should absolutely implement, like in basketball. It would be so much more entertaining if the guy who got taken down, and because I'd love it, like all of a sudden, Fontas has to take the penalty because he got fouled on a corner kick or something. It would just be great drama, but that's not the way soccer is. So if it's this way, Alan Pulido's your guy. Sporting's lucky there.
There's just so fewer of them. So it's like it makes sense like compared to basketball.
No, it doesn't make any sense. You earn the foul, you should have to take the penalty.
But then what's the point of having a designated penalty taker then?
You don't have one. No. That's my point. Like you shouldn't get to have a designated penalty. The guy that gets fouled should have to take the penalty. Why not?
Get FIFA on the
Let's go.
The lane then.
Let's go. That's
this can be a segment down the line, but I talked about this with Chad Reynolds, and there's like a fun game you can play. Like, what is one rule that you would create for soccer?
That's the one.
I would change offside.
What would you do? What would you change about
I think you should be this sounds ludicrous, but I think you should be onside as long as any part of your body is in line with the defender.
I 100% agree.
I agree.
Because then you're giving the advantage to the striker again. I mean, and it's going to be we'd like to see goals.
You don't think it should
goals?
Be like in the FA Cup final where a sliver of a man's fingernail is offside?
How bad is that?
And that's like a waste of VAR time too. When you're trying to like analyze to like the nth of like it's like a pinky nail.
And this country, for all people love to kick it from pillar to post. In soccer terms, this country is the only country that gets VAR right. Not the only, but see when you look at it compared to like the Premier League and how sometimes even Bundesliga and Italian League and stuff.
Yeah,
it seems to be here. It's every time it's used, it's kind of we know why that was used. Sometimes they use it now and you're offside by an armpit or
that's not the spirit of the law. That's not what it's meant. That was not what it was meant to overturn. It was meant to overturn clear and obvious mistakes. Guys obviously offside. There's no unfair advantage when a guy's shoulder blade is barely past the defender. No. You're right about that. But we digress. You know what? I don't even have to give you guys what I like the most. Do I give something? Should I give something?
You should give something.
Yeah.
Look, here's the thing. I am borderline. I think maybe I've already crossed over the line of fanboying on Gianluca Busio right now to the point where the Matt Beasler jokes are going to go away, and I feel like I'm.
There's a new favorite in town. Look out!
I feel like
such a floozy.
Like I'm already giving my heart to someone else. But the truth is the kid's incredible. The kid is incredible, and I get to still call him a kid because I'm 45 and he's 18 years old. But. And some people have said I bring up his age too much. Other people have said we don't make enough of his age. To play the 6, the 10, and the 9, 2 games apiece in 6 games already this year, and in at least one of each of those games be the best player on the field for SKC, in my opinion, is incredible. And we're going to talk with Tim about it. He didn't do anything in that game that would make a highlight package.
No.
He just did every right thing. And the reason that's significant to me is he's 18 again. This is a thinking man's sport. We just spent time talking about the communication between Elie and Fontas. These guys have been playing soccer forever. You know, Graham Zusi and Roger Espinoza, 2 of the greatest players in the history of this franchise, were trying to make a college team at the time that Gianluca Busio was doing what he's doing. And he's not just out there playing. He's playing at some of the most important positions on the field. They're all important. I don't want to make one position more important than the other. But he's playing incredibly important roles and doing it like an old pro.
Nothing phases him.
It's incredible.
It just seems like he's never under pressure. He's never even if he hits a shot and he balloons it into he'll get the ball again. He'll try it again, or he'll give it to someone who is in a better. But it just looks like nothing phases him. His confidence is never touched by anything that goes on in the field, and he'll go far. He has a long career ahead of him.
There's a Patrick Mahomes quality to him, and boy, that's going to make some people really mad.
Well, so something that I think about a lot is, and I want to go back and watch some of those 2019 games when he started getting his first pro minutes with the first team, and then kind of compare that to 2020, because I feel like one of the arguments that you could have made against Busio in those 2019, those early games that he was playing, was that physically he'd get outmatched a lot. And I think the way that he's been able to counteract that with just what's up here mentally and studying the game, and the way that he's able to utilize his body to his advantage now and be a little bit more elusive and just so smart on the ball, has completely taken out that maybe physical disadvantage that sometimes he will still run into, but would maybe get hurt by in the past. And I think that he's really managed that incredibly well. And it's just, he's so quality. I mean, Vermes has talked about it all the time. The reason that they can move him from an attacking midfielder role to a false 9 or to a 9, and then, back to D-mid, and you get games, like you said, Nate, where you could argue he was the best player on the field in a number of different positions. And it's just outstanding. The game moved through him against Vancouver.
Whether he was a metronome or a sprinkler head, I was under a barrage of attacks by people for those metaphors in the game. But and now I will also say this: I would never, in my wildest dreams, make the Patrick Mahomes comment on the morning show, because I would probably be thrown out of the studio. It's you don't want.
This is a safe space, Nate.
But I feel like this is a safe space to say this, and this is the only area. This just popped into my mind when Conall was talking about him. The thing you hear a lot about Patrick Mahomes from Andy Reid is the rate at which he learns. When he makes a mistake, he learns from it immediately, and he rarely repeats that mistake. Every time he sees something new, he's able to process it and grow from it. And that's the thing about Busio. I mean, the rate of his learning at 18 years old and processing has been incredible. So that's it for me. But again, we're leaving out a bunch of players because, again, Peter Vermes referenced all 11 starters when he talked about what a good performance it was from Sporting Kansas City as they get the 3-0 win. One of those guys that had a great performance, Tim Melia, the goalkeeper for SKC. We will talk with him next, right here on the Sporting Kansas City Show, presented by Michelob Ultra. And we're back on the Sporting Kansas City Show on your home for SKC Soccer, Sports Radio 810 WHB. And, of course, we are presented by the wonderful taste of Michelob Ultra. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. We're joined now by Sporting Kansas City goalkeeper Tim Melia, the record holder in just about every individual accolade you can have as a goalkeeper in Sporting KC history. And he's back, baby. He returned with a clean sheet in the 3-0 victory over the Vancouver Whitecaps this past weekend. Tim, thanks for joining us, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on.
What do you think of this setup here? You can see us. We can see you a little bit. We got the fancy studio here. It's a little different than what we've done in the past, but you're moving up in the world with the way this studio is set up now.
It looks good. You got the wood paneling in the back. You got a bunch of employees. Everyone's looking pretty on camera. You guys are flying on all cylinders over there. Yeah, we get bodies moving around here, and it makes it look like it's really action-packed. That's for sure. Well, let's start off with this. I mean, just how does it feel to be back, man? I mean, after, I'm sure it was incredibly frustrating for you to have to start the season from the sidelines, but just getting back out there and all that, how does it feel? How did it feel to be out there this past weekend? It was incredible. It was nerve-wracking, just to get injured the way I did and at the timing that I did was, like you said, very frustrating. You try to kind of back out and look at those things from, a wide out lens and say, hey, I got injured at the beginning of the year. There's a lot of time here. The type of injury I had was only going to take weeks, not months. It didn't require surgery. So you try to keep a very positive perspective on everything. And then just to be able to get out there probably quicker than we expected, just to hear the fans again, for the team to perform the way they did and to give me a gift of a game. I mean, I think Polito made more saves than I did in the game, and just our overall team performance was great. So all positive things coming back, and I'm really looking forward to, get going now.
Tim, you mentioned the difficulty of having to start the season from the sideline, but I've talked to players in the past who say that time where you are watching from the sideline or watching from a different seat in the stadium allows you to have a new perspective on the game or see things that you might not be able to see when you're in it. Was there anything that you took away from getting to watch the team from a different angle than you're used to?
So I remember I was a starter a lot later in my career, so I did that for too long watching the team play. So it's like
it had been a while.
Sickening feeling in your stomach when you're sitting up there not playing. It does seem a lot slower when you're watching up there because you have all the time in the world to look at where everybody is and you don't have any pressure on you when you're making decisions, and you can be like, oh, why can't you see this guy all the way on the other side of the field? But I mean, it's so much different when you're on the field. I thought that the way that we started the season, because we had a ton of injuries in all different positions, and I thought that we came together as a team each game, and each game we were getting a little bit better. And I think that we're starting to show the style of team we want to be now, and it's just going to take time.
Tim, you were saying it was a bit nerve-wracking coming back. In your first game back, is it kind of, are you almost wanting a shot or something to do early on just to kind of settle your nerves to get back into, how you were playing last year and stuff? Or is it, obviously coming into the game against Vancouver, you're expecting that Sporting are going to dominate the possession, which it turned out to happen that way. Is there any part of you that kind of wants a shot or wants something to do early on just to kind of get back in the rhythm of things?
Absolutely not. I want to have every game where I'm just making passes, directing people and getting those shots. Those are my favorite games. I've always said that the games that I'm most happy about are the games that I literally don't have to do anything, because that just means that we were organized. We actually put a game plan in place and we completed it. So those are the type of games I look forward to. Being out, not being, when you're coming back from injury, you're never getting the rhythm that you want, because you're training, then you're not training, and training, then you're not training, trying to make sure your body's healing, but then also getting adequate amount of time of just, rhythm within the game. So all in all, I just thought that, for me to get any type of game as a first game coming off injury, the team did me a huge, huge solid by having that type of game.
So the big theme of the game in a lot of terms was just how well Sporting Kansas City passed the ball. And we've always known and thought of you guys as a great passing team and a great possession team, but this one was at a different level. I mean, it was, I believe the final stat said, the greatest passing performance in terms of completion percentage in the history of the stadium. 9 guys, including a couple of reserves, came in to the game, completed over 90% of their passes, and you were one of them. So that was obviously a huge reason that the game was the way that you just described it, in terms of, you didn't have to make too many saves in the game. When you're watching, you got a better view of it than anybody maybe, because the other 10 guys were all in front of you. I've asked everybody I can find this question, but why? What can you put your finger on why it all came together, why you guys were so excellent in that regard in this game?
So when you go back and watch the game, when I say this, I think the performance was our best performance to date of this season. But I think this is very important for all of us to understand this and respect this, is we did nothing in that game that is not repeatable. We weren't, guys weren't scoring with the outside of their foot from 30 yards away. They weren't sending in these dicing passes that, 1 out of 20 come off. Everything we did in that game, we did the simple option, and we did it over and over and over, to the point where we just disrupted Vancouver so much that they didn't know where to go, and we got them away from their style of play. And I think that's why that game was so important for us, because we trained that all day in training. We work on that in preseason. We work on building out from the back, and we finally performed it completely on the field. And I just think that we need to, as a team, understand that we can do that again, because the things we were doing were simple things. We just kept doing simple things over and over.
So to build on that, one of the sequences that I think I'll give a little sneak preview to our viewers for the broadcast on Saturday night. I know Jacob Peterson, I asked him, hey, can you find some clips in the game that really illustrate when Sporting were at their best at this? And he picked out the sequence that led up to the penalty kick. 22 passes, all 11 guys touched the ball. So I went back and I watched it, and I would say the first minute or so of that was basically a sequence of you guys passing the ball back and forth across the back line for a while. Then all of a sudden it was like, it just watching it seemed like everybody realized at the exact same time, now it's time to go forward. And this is the opportunity we have. And then it was boom, incisive. 3 passes later, it's in the penalty area, and you guys have a penalty out of it. Possessing the ball with those simple passes that you just described is one thing. But then it's also because sometimes you'll see teams just pass the ball around and they're not going anywhere, right? But you guys seem to have that knack for knowing exactly when it was time to go be dangerous and attack. That can't be easy, is? I mean, like, how was it just one of those situations where you guys were feeling it in that regard? Is that something you guys have been kind of building toward? How would you describe that?
I think we've been building for years. And I think now we have players in there that are, performing at a very high level. You look at Busio and the amount of different positions he's played and excelled at every single one of them. But I thought his game against Vancouver was the best game of the season, just how he connected our center backs to our midfield to our wingers. Mm-hmm. I thought the effort from Daniel and Kyrie coming back and tucking in and getting the ball and then laying it off either into the midfield and back out to a fullback and then being able to find Polito underneath, and all our movement collectively was just so good. But I think it goes back to the point of what you just spoke about, where you said that sometimes when you have possession, you're just knocking it around in the back. And when you're doing that, you get uncomfortable. But when you're doing that, it's making the other team make little movements that are making them uncomfortable. And if you're patient enough and you believe in what you're doing, it will open up eventually. It's not going to open up maybe exactly when you want it to, but if you're patient, you watch like the Man City's play, where it almost looks like the team just kind of gets within 40 yards from goal and just compacts themselves. And then there's guys with so much time and space all over the place. And the reason that is because they're just patient making those comfortable passes until, an opportunity presents itself.
Well, I know that, Busio's talked about it, Jacob's talked about it, finding those triggers in the opposition that, allow for some of those different things to then happen or for the whole team to just kind of go. But no, the possession was outstanding. And you mentioned Busio. I mean, his passing map after that game was a spider web. I mean, he was connecting every single area of the game. And, another part of that too, Tim, is the two center backs and, two great playmakers with their feet, and Andre Ufantas and Ilie Sanchez. What was it like having those two play in front of you at center back?
It's funny. At other teams you play with, I'm not going to say Ilie is playing out of position. Ilie is a number 6. Everyone knows that. But it's funny when you get those guys in the back line because they have this level of comfort right around your goal that just other players don't have. And you tend to get closer to them because you see how casual they are. But I mean, Ilie is such a good passer of the ball, and to have someone like that in combination with Fontas, who is another, his best attribute is his ability on the ball. It really leads to a very interesting and a very rewarding situation coming out of the bag. And then you throw in Zeus. I thought Zeus was phenomenal that game as well. And his ability just to, find open space on the opposite side of the field and crank balls 60 yards across the field is crazy.
Tim, do you guys alter on the week going up to Vancouver? You know that they play 2 up top, and not a lot of teams play 2 up top anymore. Does that not limit, but does it kind of change the dynamic of how often you want to play it? I mean, you guys love to play out of the back, but obviously there's going to be more pressure if there's 2 up. Do you have to kind of pick and choose your moments to play it? Obviously, it kind of helps that Ilie and such are so good on the ball. You're kind of only lending it to them and giving it back. But does it change the dynamic at all of how do you guys try to counteract playing against a 2 if they're going to be pushing up when you're trying to play out?
I think it's actually easier. You have that one less person sitting in the center of the field. So the 2 strikers are always naturally going to go to the center backs. And then if it goes to the goalie, it's going to go center back goalie. And then you only have most likely one guy in the midfield at that point if they're in a 4-4-2. The other guy's going to be recovering. So I think it makes you have to play faster. But when you do play, there is that space in the midfield. And I know a lot of teams don't do it. San Jose is not going to be one team that does that. But in the past, I feel like our team has actually had success playing out against the 4-4-2 over a 4-5-1 or something.
So if they're pushing up and you're saying it leaves one in the middle, is there kind of a tendency of you might want to go long and play it because you guys don't like to really play long as it seems, but if there's 2 pushing up and it's leaving just one in the middle, is it ever in your mind that you could just go long and knock it into, obviously you guys will have more in the middle than they will?
To Allen or someone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but just I think that it's almost like you're trying to set the mentality when you're playing out of the back. Playing out of the back is not more than likely not going to lead to someone scoring. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But it's more of the the mentality, and you want to like check the other team and go, hey, we're keeping the ball. We are going to, make you come all the way to our goal. We're going to open you up, and then we're going to try to get into the midfield fast and then get out to the wing or something. So I think it's just more the mentality of, we can do this, we're going to keep the ball. So then the team recognizes that, and then they sit a little deeper and give us space to be more creative.
Once again, we're visiting with Tim Melia, and I mentioned it, people might take this for granted, but you were one of the guys that was over 90% passing, and I've seen goalkeepers come into Children's Mercy Park and spray balls into the stands from back there and all that stuff. So that is not
Myself
something
included.
It happens to everybody at some point, right? But you did have one incompletion during the day, Tim. What happened there? Do you do you remember that?
I do remember it.
You do?
I got a ball back pass. Santos was in the middle. Bucio was behind him. Cavallini checked to me. I clipped it out to the left, and I was trying to hit Luis, but I don't remember who ran back and flicked it.
Okay.
That's the one incompletion. I do remember that.
All right, well, I was being a smart aleck. I didn't think, I'm like, one incompletion isn't so bad through the course of the game. But I guess if you only have one, you might remember what it is. Hey, Tim, to shift gears a little bit now, Aly talked about the process of you having to sit on the side and watch and what you could gain from it. But I also wanted to ask you the process of watching a young goalkeeper like John Pulskamp do the job. And I had a chance to talk with him for a while before the season started, and he's been around some other goalkeepers. He's been over at Bournemouth. He was in the LA system, and he said a lot of times you're a young guy, and you can speak to this because obviously, like you said, you were riding the bench for a long time in your career before you finally got your shot. He said a lot of number ones don't really give you much of the time of day when you're a young backup that might be competing for the job or whatever. And he said that you've never been that way. He said you've taken him to dinner, you've taken him under your wing, you've talked to him about the importance of getting in the weight room and all these other aspects that he's learned from you. Why are you like that when maybe other goalkeepers that have that job wouldn't be that way?
I've always been shown the same things from other goalies in front of me. So, and I think it's important. Listen, we all want to play. It's a competitive friendship is the best way I can explain it. But because John performed so well and because he was out there, making saves, getting us points, it allowed me time to get back to fitness. If John wasn't performing the way he was, there'd probably be a different conversation that I'd maybe have to play earlier than I was ready, and it's just not going to help the team. Mm-hmm. So whenever another goalkeeper is playing, and especially one with John, who is incredibly talented and has a very, very bright future. I want him to go out there and have the best success for all of us because it is a team game. And say a different goalkeeper went out there and we didn't win any games. Now when you're coming back to a team that's going to have to climb and crawl back up a ladder to get yourself into a good playoff position. This is a team sport. And for me, if whether you're playing or you're not playing, you have to do everything to help the next person succeed. Yes, there's competition. Yes, it's your job. It's your career. It's how you support your families. But there's also an element of it where, if you're going to be out in the short term, you got to make sure you're doing everything to make sure that person is prepared mentally, physically, and helping that person excel.
So what's your advice to John Pulskamp on becoming the PK hero? And I bring this up so that we can kind of transition into the San Jose game a little bit.
Tim's favorite part, talking about himself.
I know, yeah. You love talking about yourself. But has Pulskamp ever picked your brain about the PK preparation that I know you're very thorough about?
Yeah, we didn't. So I wasn't involved in the PK discussions leading up to the games that I wasn't playing. So I didn't really talk to him about the play. We talked about plays in the game. We talked about different scenarios, but because there was no penalties, I wasn't involved in the legwork that goes on before the games.
Well, are you excited to see San Jose again after, I don't know, you could say that was a pretty eventful game at the end of last season?
Yes, but San Jose is a difficult team. San Jose is an organized chaos, the way everyone explains it. I think it really hits the nail on the head with that. I mean, they're a team that has a very high expected goals, similar to us. They're a team that they have a young guy getting out, athletic up top. It's going to be a very difficult game. They're coming off, a result that they're probably not going to be happy with. And it's going to be a challenging game for us.
Well, Tim, it's going to be a fun game too, and the team's flying high. It's great to have you back. I'm sure that makes a lot of Sporting KC fans feel great about this trip out to San Jose. We're gonna preview that matchup here in just a minute coming up on the show. But thank you so much for the time, and hopefully we'll talk to you again real soon.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Take care.
All right, that is Tim Melia, goalkeeper for Sporting KC. Oh, I didn't ask it. Wait, before you go, Tim, this is one of my favorite moments. I don't know if you guys were in the stadium for this, but when Timmy went out on the field, you know what song was playing when he went out for his warm-ups before the game?
Culture Club song.
Culture Club, Conall McCourt. Does that get you yet? Like, I mean, because at first
I was jamming. I was just running, getting all pumped up.
I was kind of like minding my own business, walking into the booth with Jake, and Jake was in there doing some work, and that song came on, and it took me like 10 seconds to. I'm like, man, that's an interesting choice to play, and because they had been playing all rain-themed songs, like everything was like Purple Rain and Fool in the Rain and all this stuff. And I was like, Karma Chameleon, what does that have to do with the rain? And then I saw Tim Melia out there warming up. I was like, here we go.
See, just on that, actually celebrating and stuff, Tim, did you see the Liverpool goalkeeper Alisson scored last week?
I did. That's my dream.
Have you ever, I was going to ask, have you ever even came close, went up for a corner?
So my first professional game, and I swear to this situation, but I've never gone back to watching on film, and it's probably not how I remember it. But my first professional game in Chivas, or maybe it was my second game, I don't remember. But we were losing to Dallas in Dallas 2-1. End of the year, I ran all the way forward. The ball bounces out to me, but I'm faced the wrong direction. And in my mind, I just like perfectly lay this ball back for Ben Zemansky. There's the name I don't remember anymore, but for him to just smack it. And all he's got to do is shoot it. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, my hands are, I'm like, you can't believe you can't do that. Like later I went back and like saw the video. I literally like volleyed the ball out of me. I just, like, didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah. You're more comfortable in the other goal, yeah.
Territory.
Yeah. That was not. Go ahead.
I'll say that was the closest I've ever been to being near the other net.
Well, that was not the Tim Melia that completes 93% of his passes like we have now. This Tim Melia would have dropped a dime, and Zemansky would have put it home.
Maybe someday.
Assists.
Now I know, though, I'm going to say, hey, this, if we ever get in a scenario where Tim Melia comes flying up the field, I'm going to say this is his opportunity right here.
I'm not going to rule it out. Now that we know that you've done something similar, you're even more prepared.
Yeah, I think he can get there. Hey, Tim, thanks again for the time. We really appreciate it, man.
Of course. I'll speak to you guys soon.
All right, that's Tim Melia. We will be back to preview this matchup against San Jose right after this on the Sporting Kansas City Show. And we're back to wrap things up on this edition of the Sporting Kansas City Show. Nate Bukaty, Aly Trost, Conall McCourt with you, presented by Michelob Ultra. We're going to get into the San Jose game in just a moment, but we did have some comments from Greg Berhalter about coming to Kansas City. Again, the 3 games in July. You can get tickets at SeatGeek.com. Here is what Greg Berhalter had to say about the U.S. coming to KC.
Kansas City is a fantastic soccer city. Their fans, their stadium creates an atmosphere that is almost second to none in U.S. soccer. Their training facilities, their rehab facility, all that make it an ideal setting for the U.S. to be based in. We're excited about that. We have a good relationship with Kansas City, with Sporting Kansas City. And, we know the fans really bring it in Kansas. So we're excited about that.
So there's Greg Berhalter. And this is what they had in mind when they built Compass Minerals National Performance Center. There are big U.S. soccer logos all over the complex out there, guys. This is almost like exactly the type of scenario that was created for that complex.
Yeah, and it's great that this is lining up, too, with full capacity and fans getting to really, the full experience of what it's like to play in Kansas City at some state-of-the-art facilities is like, and at a state-of-the-art facility like Children's Mercy Park, but then, of course, the training facilities as well. I mean, it's just what Sporting Kansas City and, what Vermees have built here is nothing short of incredible, and it's just going to be great for the city of Kansas City and the surround. I mean, it's great for the Midwest, too, because, this is not something that was standard as far as perception of places, destinations for big soccer or sporting events.
Well, this is why they built it, right? This is, you're kind of seeing, this is kind of all the stuff that was promised, and it's coming true now. You're having the U.S. come to town for 3 separate games. That means, look, some of those games will sell out quick, so I would say get on it quick, but some kids that live around here may not really be used to getting the chance to see their heroes play, or the U.S. men's national team, or whoever else is coming into play. And it's just great for the city, great for the stadium, great for people who might be on the fence about even being a soccer fan, seeing what, because look, as you said, the American Outlaws, all that stuff will be there, all the bells and whistles, because it's full capacity. So a chance to see that, you could get more kids interested, and that's what we want as well, right?
Yep, absolutely. All right, let's get on to this San Jose game, guys, before we run out of time. Organized chaos. That's what Tim Melia said about Carlos Almeida's team. This also is a rematch of a wild game, chaotic game in the playoffs last year. Sporting won in penalties. What are you looking forward to most in this game, Aly?
I'm excited to see Cade Cowell and the matchup between him and Gianluca Busio. We talked with Busio at training, and that's something that he's looking forward to in the match. It's always great when you can, put two young rising stars up against one another, and whether it's, just kind of like a measuring stick, like, oh, who's where, but they're both insanely quality, talented players that are not just, names being thrown around in the mix of young rising stars, but are probably very much so at the top of that list.
I mean, I'm going to be interested to see how Sporting approach. Are they going to approach it the same way they approached this game at the weekend? We know San Jose play different as organized chaos. It's kind of like heavy metal football. They go for it from the very start.
Heavy metal football. I love that.
Jurgen Klopp sort of, that type of, they will go for it and they'll run at you and they'll try and really pressure. So I think Busio, Elie, they could be key from this week. Players who like to protect the ball. I mean, Elie wouldn't give it away in a phone box. Anybody that comes anywhere near them, they're going to be bombing on the whole game. So it'll be interesting to see how they approach it and how they deal with it and which players play in which positions. Because, as I said, I'm sure there will be that lingering thought in Peter Vermees's mind. Do you fix it if it isn't broken? But, of course, you have to be pragmatic. You're coming up against a different team, a different style of play, and he'll probably set up his team the best way he thinks he's going to get the 3 points. So it'll be interesting to see how they approach it.
If you look at all the chances that San Jose scored on in the last game, in that playoff game, Christian Espinoza was crucial, coming up the flank, the right-hand side. Sporting KC have got to deal with that. He's a really good player. He's a designated player. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about Cade Cowell and what a beast he is physically, and rightfully so. And Jackson Ewell, should he have been with the U23s instead of Gianluca Busio? That's another storyline. But for me, you can't forget about Christian Espinoza. Sporting KC's ability to deal with him and prevent him from putting that service in up that right-hand side is going to be a big key to trying to get a result out of this game. Guys, that's going to do it for us this time around. It's been a lot of fun. Our thanks to Tim Melia for joining us on the show, and our thanks to you for listening and watching the Sporting Kansas City show. Hopefully we'll be talking to you after another win at San Jose coming up next week. Again, we are presented by Michelob Ultra. That's going to do it for this edition of the Sporting Kansas City show. So long, everybody.